Good evening, brothers and sisters, dear Sangha. I am so delighted to see you here again with us this wonderful November 27th. Wow, look at that. 2023 is almost over, right? 1 month left. It is about 6 p.m. where I am here in the Central Time Zone. And of course, it's going to be different where you are, perhaps. If you are in a different time zone, or perhaps, obviously, right, watching this at a later day and time, might not even be November 10th, right? That's the wonderful, that's the joy of technology these days, right? We can record ourselves and make notes, and people from the future can always look back and learn from us, and that's important. So I'm absolutely delighted to share some of our time with you this evening, or whenever it is that you choose to be watching. Just some brief announcements, though, before we begin. Our Dharma Institute is open, and we have wonderful classes that you can take. Resiliency Plus and Facing East, and a whole number of other courses. We have a certificate in Buddhist studies, Buddhist and mindfulness and meditation studies that you can partake upon if you choose. As well as if you are an author, perhaps you have a scholarly article, something that promotes Buddhism and the Dharma. You're absolutely welcome to submit it to our institute for publication. We would love to have that. And also we have our weekly sanghas, right? Monday through Friday, right? Our healing sangha, our veterans sangha, a new beginning sangha, a rainbow sangha, a welcoming sangha, and a sangha specifically for our teenagers who have a lot to deal with these days. Much more different landscape or environment than when you or I were back in school. And also donations. We are always joyful to take, to kindly accept any donations that you may offer. And it's important to remember that when we do make donations, we're expressing generosity and gratitude, and that also helps us earn merit, right? It also helps us, Blue Lotus, continue our mission to provide these necessary services to others who are suffering, and to help them realize that there's a joyful way, a wholesome way for everyone to experience and mindfully appreciate themselves and others and the world that they live in. And also if you're in the U.S., donations are tax deductible. There's a link in our description. So let's begin with the three jewels. All right. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. We do this so that we can honor the Buddha, his teachings, and you, our Sangha. That's where we help nurture ourselves in a wonderful community of support. We're all here to support one another, and it's important to find that strength, that unity, that bond for all of us. So tonight's topic, we'll be talking about overcoming Mara's daughters, right? Remembering that Mara, right, was the final challenge towards Buddha's enlightenment. And he had a tough time. right? So he sent in his three daughters to kind of, maybe have Buddha have a tougher time, right? So he doesn't reach that final stage. And we'll talk about that a little bit more, but why don't we go ahead and begin our wonderful guided meditation on nurturing calmness. And that's really important these days with a lot of the distractions that we are just bombarded with. So let's begin by taking a moment to settle our bodies into a comfortable position. You may close your eyes or keep them slightly open with a soft focus, looking downward a few feet in front of you if you choose. Breathe in. Pause. And breathe out. You're absolutely warmly invited to allow that half smile to rest on your face as well. Allow your spine to lift and your shoulders to soften. And soften your belly as you continue settling in. Breathe in. Pause. And breathe out. And let's meditate on nurturing calmness. We live in a world filled with noise and unnecessary distractions. Loud music from the neighbors' homes or cars may penetrate into our ears. Car alarms that may go off in the middle of the night while you're trying to rest. Loud television commercials promoting items that you don't need. Overbearing perfumes and colognes impacting your sense of smell. Binge watching television programs. Doom scrolling on your cell phone or tablet. All of these situations help nurture dissatisfaction. Breathe in. Pause and breathe out. We know that calmness is necessary for our mental well-being. And as such, we must actively participate to nurture that calmness. To regain our calmness, we sit patiently for nothing to come or arrive. And as we sit, feel our breath coming in and out. The rise and fall of your chest. This natural rhythm is calming. We enjoy the silence with nothing in the background other than what is naturally occurring. Thoughts that arise are not fought or resisted. Instead, they are welcome. Allow thoughts to go and arrive freely, just as a gentle breeze. If your hands are folded, feel the warmth against the skin of each of your hands. And if not, go ahead, place your hands in this position and just bring attention to the warmth generated by your body. Breathe in. Pause. And breathe out. And then as you sit here for the next few moments, just enjoy the calmness that has begun to replace the stress, the anxiety, or the uncertainty that you had and that has consumed your well-being. Go ahead and begin to open your eyes slowly and reorientate yourselves before you move around or stand up. Wonderful. It's so important for us to have that calmness of mind and body. When we have a calm mind, we're able to make decisions with care and with mindfulness and with wisdom. And that's very important. Very often we make a decision on an impulse or without thinking through. And so with a daily practice of mindfulness along these lines, and with what we'll talk about today, regarding Mara's daughters, see how important that is. And just everyday examples. And we'll explore some. And if you have questions as we go along, absolutely. Just type into the chat. Trying to monitor this at the same time. So let's think about it. Mara's daughters, overcoming Mara's daughters. Let's think about Buddha's story before he became the Buddha, right? Remembering that he was a wealthy prince who lived a very sheltered life growing up, but he knew that there was something more in his being, that he wanted to go out and find the cause of suffering, and if possible, how to stop suffering, ease suffering, or cessate suffering. And through his travels and his progress, eventually he came down to his meditative state, and which is coming up on December 8th, Bodhi Day. He really said to himself, after he discovered it, it's the middle way, right? It's not one extreme, it's not the other extreme. It's the middle way that leads to satisfaction and enlightenment. But he wanted to explore that a little bit further. He wanted to really, really delve into that and explore that. And so he sat underneath that Bodhi tree for 7 weeks, 49 days. And right at the cusp of his enlightenment, after Mara was a demon, afflicted all types of assaults on him, arrows, hot coals, and so forth, and all types of temptations to get him off his path. But Siddhartha at that time, very steadfast, wasn't going to do it. So Mara said, I'm going to send in my 3 daughters, Raga, Arati, and Tanha. He sent them in to finish the job that Mara could not do. And so Raga, she represents the light or lust. And the really prime example is just sexual lust, right? And we can think about examples of that, daily, right? It doesn't have to be an attractive person walking down the street, right? Or driving in the car next to us, or perhaps a coworker or a fellow student, right? It could be an advertisement, right? Maybe they're advertising lipstick or cologne, right? But Siddhartha, or the Buddha, or Siddhartha at that time, still hasn't quite made that leap to enlightenment yet, was able to successfully repel and not fall into those defilements of himself. But then we get to Arati, right? She is discontent or aversion. And discontent and aversion, a little bit more tricky than just that blatant lust that we see. A little bit more tricky. And so some really good examples of aversion and discontent lie in, well, think about where we spend a lot of our time, right? We spend a lot more time in this state of aversion or discontent than what we consider, what we really think. And it's not And aversion and discontent is not only about avoiding people whom we dislike or places we don't want to be, but think about how much time you spend on a daily basis just being unhappy about things about like politics, right? Or other issues that you have no control over. Maybe it's the way a movie ended. Right? You're dissatisfied with how the two characters ended up. That's dissatisfaction. That's discontent. That's aversion. Certainly, trying to avoid someone that you're not particularly fond of is aversion as well. And that's a more blatant example, right? It could be a food you don't like to eat. It's an aversion. Like, mom made, I don't know, green bean casserole. I like green bean casserole, but mom made green bean casserole again. I don't want to eat that. I'm tired of it. And so we think about it, right? It leads up to more dissatisfaction. And so as a result, we think about this. How often does that anger that we contemplate on a daily basis, how often does that anger or that hatred place a stranglehold over our hearts? Suppose it is green bean casserole that your mom made. Your mom put effort into it. And that puts a stranglehold on your heart, right? It seizes up your heart because it's focusing on you. Right? It's focusing on you that, like, oh, I don't like it. But your mom went out there and put a lot of effort into it. Maybe if it's fresh green beans, maybe she, went to the store and bought them and picked them and washed them and so forth and did what she did. But again, it could even be a political example. What say do you have? Why complain about it if, on a, some post someplace, it's not going to influence anyone except yourself. It's going to stranglehold and allow that hatred and that anger and that discontent or aversion to build up inside you. And that is unhealthy. So Buddha was successfully able to avoid and fend off the assaults of Arati, right? Mara's second daughter, right? Discontent or aversion. But then the third daughter that he had to contend with was cravings or desires, attachments. Her name was Tanha. Okay. Tanha experience, right, or cravings and desires we experience also on a daily basis. Things like wealth, right, materialism, power, recognition, right? And it's not to say that any one of them necessarily are bad, right? We have to remember it's the middle path that we are looking for. We can certainly, in our day and age, certainly do need a car, right, to perhaps go to, the grocery store or whatnot. Right? But you don't need a Bentley to go to Walmart or whatever your local grocery store is. Or that power recognition, right? I have to be the supervisor, right? I have to be, recognized for every single one of my contributions. Everybody needs to know, and I'm going to make sure that everybody knows. That's an attachment to that attention. And so we can continue to think about how to acquire more in our society too. How do we acquire more power, more recognition, more material items, more wealth? And so, as a result, right, stores and whatnot, they continuously bombard us with new things. Think about your cell phone. Every year there's probably a new model. Think about the laptop or the tablet that you may even be right now watching us on. Every year there's a new model, a new little bell, new little whistle. And so those cravings and desires are what keeps us from being content. And maybe you've heard keeping up with your neighbor, right? The neighbor has this. Those are cravings and desires. That's Tanha, and that affects our well-being. Right? So, and then our desire for mental stimulation, right, causes us to spend hours in front of the television, right, or playing video games on your phone, right? Time, which certainly we all like to watch TV from time to time, or even play a video game here and there, of course, right? But binging it, just like we talked about in that guided meditation, right? Binging those activities, could often be more wisely used, right? Calming our mind, practicing mindfulness. And then, so Tanha, or craving our desires, does their best to make sure that we are never satisfied. And so that's the middle path that is really necessary for us to maintain, right? It can also be talked about a little bit, or maybe described a little bit as humility, right? Humble. So, how do we overcome Mara's daughters? Well, of course, it's with mindfulness, right? And it's important to develop our own practice, right? It's important for us to have it, I don't want to say regimented, but we do want to have a daily practice, right? Even for me, there may be a day that, my schedule dictates something else, or I may not be able to sit there, in meditation, but I can practice it other ways, whether it's communication or listening or writing or whatnot. So developing our practice, meditations, reading books on meditation and mindfulness or the Dharma, right? Reading sutras or whatever it is, even listening to other audio or even video presentations of, Dharma talks, and then reflecting on ourselves. What did we learn? How can we employ what we learned? And then practicing, I guess that goes with the practicing mindfulness in all we do. So, right. So how do we employ or utilize what we learned during our mindfulness and our meditations? Excuse me. And then recognizing that there is suffering in everything in existence. Uncertainty and impermanence are the natural law. And that craving, that desire, that attachment, that's what affects our understanding of this law. So even when, if we have elderly parents, we have an attachment to them, we love them, we know that they will pass someday, but that still affects us, right? And then when one of these temptations or defilements arises, it's important to recognize it, right? Just simply recognize that emotion or that thought. Don't try to fight it, but don't try to bury them, right? Remembering what you resist persists, right? It's just acknowledging, right? Oh, here's that feeling again, right? Oh, here's that emotion again. But when we use that moment, when we recognize it and we acknowledge it, when we use that moment to observe them, we can use that to better understand ourselves and then defeat them with wisdom. So just acknowledging them. I am feeling inferior because somebody else got this promotion. And then we can reflect on that. Why do I feel inferior? Or maybe I feel superior now. I'm better than somebody else because I got this promotion. Why are you feeling that way? Right? Examine that thoroughly and openly. And learn about yourself. And then you can defeat Mara's 3 daughters with wisdom. I thank you for your kind presence this evening. Or again, if you are watching this in the future, I am absolutely grateful that you are spending some of your time with us. And so let us know what you think in the comments below. I answer every single comment. I myself, I make that a priority because you're valuable. And then we'll end with the 3 jewels, just like we began with. We'll end with the 3 jewels. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. Sathu, Sathu, Sathu. And I thank you all for spending your time with us. And then we will see you in 2 weeks. I think it's like the 12th or 13th, every other week. Take care, my friends. Love you all, my Dharma, my Sangha friends.